The Wyoming sun was brutal that day. It didn't just shine, it blazed with an intensity that shimmered. The heat warped the air above the cracked earth, which looked like ancient sun-baked bones. Across that desolate expanse, a woman stumbled forward, looking as though she was already halfway to the grave. Her dress was in shreds, one sleeve completely gone. Dust coated her skin, turning it into a mask of grime. This was Ellie Dawson, 26 years old, and she had been running for her life since the first crack of dawn. Behind her, somewhere in the heat-hazed distance, a man's voice had finally faded, a voice that had dared to call her property. She refused to look back. The blisters on her feet had long since burst, and streaks of blood stained her ankles, but she kept moving. Stopping meant death. Reaching the crest of a ridge, she saw it. A small ranch house, weathered and still, with a thin trail of smoke curling from the chimney, a fragile promise of life. Her throat felt like sandpaper, her lips were cracked and bleeding, but she started down that hill anyway, stumbling, half falling, half crawling, until she reached the fence post. Her fingers gripped the rough wood, her knees buckled, and the world swam before her eyes in a haze of gold and dust. Then she heard it, the creak of hinges. A man stepped out onto the porch. He was broad-shouldered, wearing a worn hat, and his face was etched with lines that spoke of countless harsh summers. Bo Callahan, 48, a rancher who'd seen more than his fair share of hardship. He stood motionless, one hand near the doorframe where a rifle leaned against the wall. He studied the stranger kneeling in the dirt, barefoot, dress torn, eyes wide with hunger and fear. For what felt like an eternity, neither of them spoke. Then Ellie croaked, "Please!" Her voice cracked like dried wood. I just need a place." She swayed, barely able to stay upright. "I can work. I'll earn it. I can cook, clean, mend anything." Bo's jaw tightened. "Who's after you?" She shook her head weakly. "Nobody. Now." He scanned the ridge, a habit ingrained in a man who had buried friends because he hadn't looked twice. "You got anyone with you?" She whispered. "No one. Not anymore." Silence hung heavy in the air. The wind rattled the dry grass. Then Ellie's fingers trembled. She reached for the torn hem of her dress, lifted it just enough to reveal a deep gash on her thigh, crusted with dirt. Her words came out in ragged gasps. "I'll take it off. Please, just fix me up and give me a job." Her knees gave way again, and she collapsed onto the porch with a thud. Dust puffed around her like smoke for a fleeting moment. Bo didn't flinch. Every instinct screamed at him to be cautious. Women didn't just appear out of nowhere in this land. Trouble usually followed close behind, but then he saw her hands, trembling, bleeding, raw from crawling. That wasn't deception, that was pure survival. He bent down, slid an arm under her shoulders, and lifted her as if she weighed nothing. "Easy," he said softly. "You're safe enough. For now." He carried her inside, taking each step carefully, and set her on a wooden chair by the fire. The cabin smelled of wood smoke and old coffee grounds, simple but clean. Bo fetched a basin, poured water, tore a strip from a flour sack, and knelt before her. When the cold water hit her skin, Ellie winced, biting her lip. He spoke without looking up. "You tell me what happened when you've got breath to spare. Until then, don't bleed on my floor." A ghost of a smile flickered across her cracked lips. "I'll try not to." He nodded once. "Good. I'll get you some food when you can sit up straight. After that, we'll figure out what you're good for." She opened her mouth as if to thank him, but no sound came out. Only tears, silent, hot and unwanted, slid down her dirt-streaked cheeks. For the first time in days, maybe weeks, she wasn't running. Outside, the wind carried the sound of nothing. No hooves, no shouts, just the hum of a land that was indifferent to whether you lived or died. Inside that little cabin, a stranger had knocked on death's door, and a cowboy had chosen to open it. Bo didn't say much after she passed out. He just sat by the table, watching the heat waves shimmer across the yard. The desert had its own unique kind of silence, the kind that made a man think about things he'd rather forget. When Ellie woke, she was lying on a couch near the window. Her leg was wrapped in clean cloth, and the smell of coffee hung heavy in the air. She blinked, confused, then saw the man sitting across from her, cleaning a rifle with slow, steady movements. "You're awake," he said. She nodded, her voice still rough. "Why'd you help me?" He shrugged. "Guess it's still my land. Don't like seeing people dying on it." He stood up, poured water into a tin cup, and set it on the table beside her. "Drink, then tell me if anyone's coming after you." Ellie hesitated. The memories came back like shards of broken glass, too sharp to touch. "He's not coming back," she whispered. Bo's eyes narrowed. "You sure about that?" He walked to the porch and scanned the ridge, an old habit. You didn't live long out here if you didn't check who was watching. When he came back inside, the expression on his face had softened just a little. "You can stay till you heal. After that, we'll see." Ellie looked at the cup in her hand. "I can work. I mean it." He nodded once. "You'll need to. This place eats lazy people alive." From the hallway came a small sound. A boy, maybe 7 years old, peeked around the corner, barefoot, dark hair, sharp eyes. Bo turned. "Tommy, say hi." The boy didn't. He just stared at Ellie, clutching a small wooden horse. "It's all right," she said softly. "You're safe." Tommy didn't move. "Kids out here learn quick not to trust strangers." Bo rubbed the back of his neck. "He'll warm up eventually." Ellie gave a weak smile. "He's got your eyes." That's what his mother used to say. Bo replied, his voice low. Then he picked up the rifle again, ending the conversation right there. Hours passed. The sky began to dim, and the smell of supper filled the small house. Ellie tried to stand, wincing, but stubborn. "I can help," she said. Bo didn't look up. "You can help by not falling over." There was something almost kind beneath that rough tone. She didn't know if it was pity or respect, but it made her want to prove she was more than just trouble. As the day faded to orange and the first star appeared, Bo stepped outside again, checking the ridge one last time. He'd learned something about the woman inside. She was scared, yes, but not broken. And in this land, that counted for a lot. He didn't know it yet, but by letting her stay, he'd just invited a storm into his quiet life. And storms out here never passed without a fight. The next morning started quiet. The kind of quiet that makes a man uneasy. Bo was out by the barn, fixing a loose hinge, while Ellie fed the chickens with Tommy by her side. The air was heavy, and the sun was already beating down on the back of their necks. Nothing felt overtly wrong, but something felt off. Tommy tugged on Ellie's sleeve. "There's dust," he said, pointing toward the far ridge. She squinted. A single rider moved through the heat shimmer, coming slow but steady. Her heart sank. She knew that shape, that hat, that way of sitting in the saddle like he owned everything he surveyed. Bo saw it too. He straightened up, wiped his hands on his jeans, and told Tommy to take the bucket inside. The boy hesitated, then ran toward the house. Ellie just stood there, frozen, every part of her wanting to disappear. "Go inside," Bo said quietly. "Lock the door." She swallowed hard. "He'll kill you if you stand in his way." Bo gave a small, dry smile. "Then I guess I'll have to stand real firm." The rider reached the fence and stopped. The horse snorted, its hooves kicking up dust. He looked rough and tired, a man who'd been living off scraps and whiskey for far too long. His eyes darted between Bo and the house. He wasn't the kind of evil born from power, but the kind that festered in men who'd been alone for too long, a drifter with nothing left to lose and too much fear to hide. "Well, well," the man said, his voice rough as gravel. "You took what's mine, rancher. She ain't yours." Bo answered, his voice steady. "And you best start riding the other direction before this turns ugly." The man spat into the dirt. "You going to shoot me?" Bo glanced at the house. "Got a boy inside. Gun stays where it is." He stepped closer, his eyes locked on the man. "But I got two hands." "That's enough!" Ellie's voice cut through the heat from the porch. "I'll tell the sheriff what he did," she said, her voice shaking but clear. The drifter flinched, his bravado cracking for a second when he realized the law could follow him farther than he thought. The tension snapped like thunder. The man swung first. Bo ducked, drove a fist into his gut, and the sound echoed off the barn wall. The horse spooked, and dust flew everywhere. Ellie screamed from the porch as Bo grabbed the man by the collar and shoved him hard against the fence. "Listen good," Bo said, his voice low but deadly clear. "You come back here again, I'll take you to the sheriff myself. Out here, they hang men for what you did. You hear me?" The man coughed, spat blood, and nodded. "You'll regret this." Bo stepped back, his jaw tight. "Maybe, but not today." The rider climbed back on his horse and turned without another word. When the sound of hooves finally faded, the ranch went quiet again. "Too quiet," Ellie said, leaning against the porch rail, trembling. Bo wiped his mouth with the back of his hand and then looked at her. "You all right?" he asked. She nodded, though she wasn't. "He won't come back." Bo's voice softened. "Not unless he's looking to die." Tommy peeked out from the window, his small face pale but curious for the first time. He looked at Ellie, not with fear, but with something like respect. As the day settled, Bo sat on the porch steps, staring out over the land. He didn't know it yet, but that fight had changed everything. The house wasn't just a place to live anymore. It was a line drawn in the dust, a promise made under the burning sun. And this story, my friend, is just getting started. So, before you go anywhere, take a sip of your coffee or your evening tea, lean back and tell me where you're listening from right now. And if you want to know what happens next on this lonely ranch, make sure you hit that subscribe button. The next part might just surprise you. The morning after the fight, the ranch felt quiet again. The kind of quiet that makes a man hope things might stay steady for once. Bo was fixing a rail by the barn while Ellie hung laundry in the sun. Tommy chased a chicken across the yard, laughing so hard he tripped over his own feet. It was the first time Ellie had heard him laugh like that. It made her smile without even knowing why. Bo looked up from his work and said, "Keep him away from the barn. That mare's been jumpy since yesterday." Ellie nodded. "But boys will be boys." It only took a few minutes for Tommy's curiosity to win. While Bo turned his back to reach for a hammer, the boy slipped toward the corral, a stick in his hand, pretending it was a cowboy whip. He climbed up on the gate rail and tapped the mare's flank, whispering, "Giddy up." The mare didn't take it kindly. Her head shot up, the rope jerking tight, and her eyes went wide with panic. In one sudden move, she snapped the lead and kicked the stall door open. The crash echoed like a gunshot. Bo spun around, shouting, "Tommy!" But the horse was already charging toward the open yard. The boy froze, too scared to move. Ellie saw it all unfold. She didn't think, didn't even breathe. She dropped the basket of laundry and ran faster than she ever had before. Just before the horse reached him, she dove forward, tackling Tommy to the dirt. The mare thundered past, so close that Ellie felt the wind from its hooves brush her face. Bo grabbed a rope and ran after the animal, catching the reins just before it reached the fence. He fought to calm it down, speaking in a low, soothing voice until the beast finally stopped shaking. When he turned back, Ellie was sitting in the dust, holding Tommy tightly in her arms. Bo walked up, still breathing hard. "You all right?" Ellie nodded, brushing dirt off Tommy's hair. "We're fine." Bo crouched beside them, looking at her with a newfound respect in his eyes. "That horse could have killed you both." Ellie gave a small but weary smile. But it didn't. Tommy clung to her, tears streaking his dirty cheeks. "I'm sorry," he whispered. She hugged him tighter. "No harm done, kid. Just remember, even cowboys have to listen sometimes." That night, Bo left a folded blanket by her door. He didn't mention it, and she didn't ask. Some things were better left unsaid. The next morning, Tommy placed his little wooden horse on the table beside her plate. "For you," he said softly. Ellie smiled, her eyes shining in the morning light. Maybe, just maybe, she wasn't a stranger anymore. But peace never lasts long on the frontier, and what happened the following week would prove that some storms don't give warnings. Days passed quietly after the scare with the horse. Ellie found her rhythm on the ranch. She woke before sunrise, kept the stove going, packed lunches, and helped Tommy with his reading each night. The sound of her voice filled the small house in a way Bo hadn't heard since before the fever took his wife. It wasn't love, not yet. It was something steadier. Respect, trust, a shared sense that maybe they were meant to walk the same hard road for a while. Bo started leaving his coffee mug beside hers in the mornings. Tommy stopped hiding behind chairs and began asking her questions about the world beyond the hills. Ellie answered what she could, though her own story was still shrouded in shadows. The days felt lighter now, and even the long heat of summer seemed a little kinder. One evening, Bo fixed the broken fence post near the garden. Ellie joined him, handing him nails and holding the boards steady. When they finished, the sky was painted with soft gold. She looked out across the land and said quietly, "You ever think about leaving this place?" Bo smiled faintly. "Used to. Now I think about who I'd be if I did." She nodded, thinking of all the miles she'd walked and all the doors she'd knocked on. "Funny thing," she said. "I ran for so long, I forgot what standing still felt like." He looked at her, his eyes gentle for once. Maybe running was what got you here that night. As Tommy slept, Bo sat on the porch with a cup of coffee. Ellie joined him, and they sat in silence for a while. The crickets chirped, and the air smelled like dried grass and the faint scent of hope. Sometimes a home isn't a place you find. It's a place that lets you stay when you've got nowhere else to go. Maybe that's what this story is really about. Not about heroes or villains, but about people who choose to stay when leaving might be the easier option. So, what about you, my friend? Have you ever found a place or a person that made you stop running? Or are you still searching for one? If this story resonated with you, take a moment to like the video and hit that subscribe button. It helps keep these stories alive out here in the dust, because out on the frontier, even a simple story can make the world feel a little less lonely.